Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. The show. My show. Because Cliff's not here yet. My name's Justin, and I will be joined, I hope, by Cliff. I hope he's okay. I hope he didn't get in a car accident. But he doesn't drive. So he wouldn't get in a car accident. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. We've been doing the show for 6 years, over 300 episodes. We've had so many members of the cast and the crew on the show, and so many of you fans. We've had equal number of fans on the show to talk with us about their passion for Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and the movies and the books and everything else. So today we're going to have another fan conversation, but this guy is kind of a professional. We found him on Twitter, and you might have seen some of his epic tweet threads. His name's Bryan Young, and he is basically one of the biggest voices on fan Twitter right now. And he's doing these, he's getting known for these epic threads that dive deep into the lore of what he's passionate about. And right now, what he's passionate about is Star Wars. And he's one of us that grew up with Star Wars, and he's one of these voices that has kind of been elevated above the fold with his insightful perspective on everything that Lucasfilm and is doing. And the reason I wanted to bring him on the show is not just because I'm a Star Wars fan, but I think that the Lord of the Rings fandom is about to enter a new phase with the Amazon series, $1 billion, 5 seasons. And these are going to be all new tales that have never been told, that have never been written down, that are not based on anything Tolkien wrote. They're loosely based in the world of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. But there will be characters that haven't existed. There will be adventures that did not come from the mind of John Tolkien himself. So I think there's a lot of similarities that we're embarking upon that Star Wars fandom is doing right now, is going through right now. A lot of these emotions of these new storytellers and these new filmmakers coming into Star Wars and telling their spin on the Star Wars characters and what's going on there. So, and there's been huge debates on whether you like The Force Awakens, whether you like The Last Jedi, what they did with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Some of those fan debates I think we can expect to have as Tolkien fans when the new series comes out, because they're going to be working with characters that are very, very, very beloved and doing things unexpected with them. So I wanted to bring him on the show via Skype and talk about how he's made a career out of writing about what he is passionate about. And maybe there's some tips for all of you Tolkien fans to make your voice heard on Twitter or through the One Ring. And maybe that can lead to some paying work, as it did with Bryan Young. So we'll bring him on in about a half hour. We'll bring him on about 5:30, because I want to give my co-host Cliff time to materialize, as it would be. So I'm on my own. But since I'm on my own, you can see that I'm controlling the stream from here, as I always do. And so let me show you the whole bar. Look, we're doing this show through the generosity of the Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood. It is at the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and Cahuenga. There are stars of the Walk of Fame right in front of this place. And our logo, the One Ring, is on the digital display that rotates their schedule here. As you can see, the bar has been designed and themed for Tolkien, thanks to Ellen and some of our fan contributors have helpfully turned this Scum and Villainy bar into a little bit more Middle Earth. In fact, we got some barrels going on here Look at that. We got a barrel. All of the lights behind us are made to look like Bilbo's green door. We've dressed the entire place bathed in golden hues of yellow and orange. And, of course, this is a restaurant open to the public. It's all ages. It also serves alcohol, a brew, a pint, and it is open to the public. So I encourage everyone every week from here on out for the rest of the year, please make an effort and come and join the show. You can sit right here. In fact, we've set up cameras and lights and a special microphone just for our special guests. If you come on the show, and if you've been with us the last few weeks, you've seen many fans. We've had some cosplayers. We've had some drop-ins from Hollywood. And we've, of course, even had the owner of the bar come in, sit in the hot seat, and tell us all about their fandom, be part of the debate, ask questions to Cliff, because he's the resident expert of all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Now, you know, some of the feedback that we got with some of our panels lately at WonderCon and stuff is there's a lot of new fans that may not remember coming to the website in 2001. They might not have been able to go on the internet because their parents wouldn't allow them to go on the internet because they were that young during the Lord of the Rings heyday. But, and Cliff, sometimes he is a little shy, and sometimes he's not. But one of the reasons I enjoy this show is Cliff is one of the world's leading experts on the Tolkien legendarium. Tolkien himself called his world not a universe, not a cinematic universe. It's the legendarium. And I think Amazon should call the future of Lord of the Rings the legendarium, adding to the legendarium. But Cliff was hired on the behind-the-scenes DVD production of Lord of the Rings to make sure everything that they were doing was accurate. Remember the DVD menus where the map would go across and everything? You can thank Cliff for making sure all of that was accurate. Cliff was also can be seen in Return of the King. He is one of the knights on guard in Minas Tirith. Cliff was also on set during a lot of that. Cliff also wrote and produced the documentary Ringer's Lord of the Fans, which won all of these awards at all of these film festivals. It ended up getting bought by Sony Pictures Classics, had a big DVD release. Many of you discovered our little fandom thanks to Ringer's Lord of the Fans. And then Cliff also helped co-write many of the books that the One Ring has helped publish. I think we're up to 3 or 4 books that the One Ring has been involved in publishing. And when we visited the Tolkien Library in Illinois at that college, that Christian college in Illinois, the name will come to me, there's a Tolkien library where Tolkien's desk, his actual writing desk where he wrote Lord of the Rings, sits. And in that library are all of Cliff's books, and they asked him to autograph all the books. So Cliff is his own celebrity in Tolkien fandom. And he's not just a celebrity. He lives and breathes this stuff. And I'm just a fan that enjoyed the movies. So it's really exciting for me every week for 6 years, over 300 episodes, to be part of this conversation. And so today we're going to Skype in Bryan Young. And since Cliff is a published writer, Bryan is a published writer. Cliff is an expert in the lore of Tolkien. Bryan is an expert in the lore of Star Wars. I think there's a lot of things. Who knows where the conversation will lead. And I think Cliff will have the hotline. As you can see, there are words scrolling right above me. That is a phone number that goes to Cliff and I. And when you text that hotline, it goes to both me and Cliff.
Speak of the devil, and he will appear.
Speak of the devil.
Look at this. My backpack is like knocking over liquor bottles. Like, this is like an alcoholic's disaster come true. I'm just knocking everything over. Hi.
He
Hi, everybody.
took my mic, so I will take his. I'm double.
It's Freaky Friday with the mics.
Okay. So we're glad you're with you. I see a lot of regulars in the chat room. I see Dallas and Hannah and Sarah, and I see so many people. And we've gotten a lot of feedback over the last few years. We've upgraded the internet here. We should be doing super smooth on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter.
It's amazing, the upgrades. If only we could get the host to show up on time. That's one upgrade we're still looking to improve on the show.
And the other
there.
The other upgrade we're looking to do is upgrade the chat room so we can have a Discord chat room so everybody can just log in anytime and be part of the chat. Remember when we had a chat that people could go to the onering.net/live and just be part of the chat room?
I do remember that. Indeed, it was quite good because
it was good.
It was well supported, and now we have the possibility to have possible chats with Facebook. I had other people trying to talk over the last 2 weeks. They were like, why didn't you see my chat in the YouTube chat?
Right.
And that's because I'm actually looking at a different screen right here. But
so we're
we're
working on bringing on all those chat rooms into one chat room that we can look at.
There's my friends. Hey there, what's up, Drew? The bar is open, believe it or not. Sorry, guys. Yes.
As I said, this place is open.
It's open. It's
to
an
the
actual
public.
bar.
Now, Cliff, I said that we were going to have a segment every week that talks about toys and collectibles.
Yes.
We weren't able to get our collectibles editor, Josh, this week, but I brought in something exciting.
That's very exciting.
Now,
in fact,
I only got this.
You didn't. Did you really? Did you go back to the store and get one of these?
I got it.
Oh, the Barnes & Noble Gollum Funko Pop.
It's an exclusive to Barnes & Noble.
And they've re-released it, though.
Yeah,
it's a re-release.
It's a re-release of the Invisible Gollum.
Yeah.
Show the camera.
I'm kind of captivated with this.
Yeah,
right now.
you're obsessed with it.
Whoa, what's going on? This is Gollum wearing the One Ring. He is invisible. It reminds me of when Warner Brothers first brought out their early wave of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yep.
The rare version of Harry Potter was the one where he had the invisibility cloak. The invisibility cloak made with this kind of plastic. Here he is.
There he is.
Super Smeagol Gollum. Barnes & Noble exclusive. How much did this set you back?
I don't want to talk about prices. I just want to. Thank.
Of course not.
I just want to thank our Twitter followers for alerting us to the fact that the Invisible Gollum.
This is really something.
Is available again at Barnes & Noble's in store.
It's the Treebeard that I want.
Well,
It's
guess what happened when I went to go pick this up at my local Barnes & Noble?
The one, over here by the Grove at 3rd and Fairfax?
No, I had to go to the Inland Empire.
Oh, because you live way out there in the desert plateau, way out there.
Well, ask and ye shall receive.
No! For real. This just happened live on the air. Oh, yeah, go ahead. You can have that.
You can unbox it.
I'm happy now. Bye, everybody. It's time. It's time for Quick Beam to say hello to his little friend, Treebeard. Wow. This is so cool. Can we unbox this? Here.
I guess.
Here.
Yeah,
yes, we've got. I'm so stoked.
Excited.
This is really great, man. I've been waiting for this.
Guys,
the last time we had a Treebeard collectible figure, remember that one from Toy Biz? It was about.
Was the last time?
It was 16 inches off the tabletop, and it had a voice chip, and you would press a little tree branch on his shoulder or something, and he would say
voice chip.
Yeah, it had a voice chip, and there was John.
When was
Rhys
this?
Davies.
Like 2001?
It was the voice of John Rhys Davies, who was actually not only did he play Gimli, son of Gloween, but he was also the voice of Treebeard, and he said, "Little orcs, Borarum." That's exactly what he said. Now this one does not talk, but I am no less enthused, no less excited. Oh. You know what?
I'm waving to you, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the show. And I'm going to say hello to everybody. There's Vicky, Elizabeth, Helen Ford. Good to have you. Welcome to the show. You know what? I'm a big fan of the MCU. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of the MCU, but I don't need Baby Groot anymore. Bye-bye, Groot. Bye-bye, Vin Diesel. You're out of a job. It's Treebeard time. Oh, God, this is awesome.
You're really excited.
He moves. His head actually moves.
Is he a bobblehead?
Look, sort of. This is so cool. But because of the way he's built, the way he's designed, there's nowhere for his head to move. Even though it can move, there's nowhere it can go. It can't really go anywhere.
So when was the last time that there was a Treebeard toy or collectible? You're at 2002?
2002.
And it had a voice chip. You know what else had a voice chip?
The Two Towers. The release of the Two Towers was the last time. Hey, everybody, come on in. The bar's open. Oh, my gosh. Don't be shy. Like, we're actually, you know, we're happy to have a live show where we have a live audience walk in on us. This is the way it works around here. But this, without the voice chip, right? Yeah, exactly. Without the voice chip, all you need to do is do a recording of me doing John Rhys Davies. And then you guys can pull it up on your phone, on your soundboard, and then you can just press the button every time and just pretend.
Hi, Kay.
It's
You know
John.
what else had a voice chip talking toys? Star Wars prequels. Remember those? You guys remember? Yeah. What was it? What were they called? It was the comm chip. Remember? Yeah, it was the comm. Yeah.
The comm chip. It was a plastic base, and you'd stick the foot of your figure into the plastic base, and it would talk through it. Yes, that's right. Absolutely crazy pants.
Well, I guess I guess Star
so
Wars did it
stoked.
first, and then Lord of the Rings said, if they can have talking toys, we can have talking toys. So they made a talking Treebeard. And
Bye-bye, Baby Groot. We don't need you no more.
Wait, so are you telling me that there has not been a Treebeard toy since 2002?
There has not been a Treebeard toy since 2002, and I hate to sound like an echo chamber, but there hasn't been no Two Towers merchandise of any kind, except for those. Thank you. Those beautiful, beautiful releases from Sideshow Collectibles.
Has there been a Treebeard in that Sideshow collectible release?
I bet you there has. Somewhere along the line, yes.
Does anyone in the chat room have a Treebeard collectible? If you do, post it at our new collectibles community. Just go to theonering.net and click on collectibles, and
it takes you to Gemmer, doesn't it?
It takes you to Gemmer, where you can post that a picture of your Treebeard collectible, because obviously they are rare and significant, and it would make Cliff very, very happy for you to show your support for Treebeard.
Do you know what's really? It's awesome. As somebody pointed out to me recently, that Treebeard is the only guy in all of Middle Earth who can get, you know, kind of cute and lippy with Gandalf and say, "Young Master Gandalf," and he means it. And he means it. He's the only person who can refer to Gandalf as a youngling, you know. It's true. But I'm like, the title, the name that he has, Eldest, okay? There's some deep confusion sometimes with the book fans between Tom Bombadil and Treebeard in trying to figure out who is the oldest living being in all of Middle-earth. And Legolas refers to Treebeard as the eldest. Am I not mistaken in this? Yes, that's right, Jen. I got my beautiful Treebeard.
I wonder if we can hide Gollum in the corner of the Scum and Villainy Cantina and see if he would frighten anybody.
Maybe.
Like, wait, why is there a Gollum in the corner?
But
and
yeah, there should be hidden figures everywhere.
They have hidden figures in here everywhere.
But getting back to my point, Legolas probably created more of a misunderstanding. When Legolas is talking about Treebeard and says he is the eldest, he's not really. It's not that Treebeard is the oldest living thing on the planet, Arda. It's more like an honorific. It's a title. Like having a title.
So would you say that the screenwriters have gone amok by giving Treebeard that line in the movie, by making Treebeard talk down to Gandalf and Saruman in age?
It's perfectly on point.
The evil filmmakers have retconned Tolkien and ruined the age of all the characters. No.
It's not like that. It's in the book. It's totally fine for everything that the Treebeard.
This is really cool.
Everything that the movie. Yeah, but the movie version of Treebeard and everything that he did was totally sound. What's most interesting is that the opening of the film with Cate Blanchett doing that 7-minute prologue, she has Treebeard's dialogue.
Wait.
It is Treebeard's dialogue in Galadriel's mouth when she opens up the film. speaking against a black screen.
So Galadriel doesn't actually say those words in the book?
The world is changing. I feel it in the water.
He keeps
I
running
smell it
away.
in the air. That's not Galadriel's
Scum?
dialogue. That is Treebeard, transposed from the book to her for the opening of the film.
Would you hold
Is
that
that-
against the filmmakers?
No, it's brilliant. I think it's totally
Does
brilliant.
anyone hold that against the filmmakers?
No,
because,
no.
Because
What I hold against the filmmakers are things like, what happened in the theatrical release of The Return of the King, where the whole Christopher Lee scene was cut from the film. The opening 12 minutes was cut, where you did not know what happened to Christopher Lee or his fate as Saruman. You didn't find that out. We didn't know. If you were only watching the film and you had never
I had
read
never
the book,
read the book, so I didn't know.
you had to wait 1 year later for the extended edition of Return of the King.
And honestly,
Look at this guy.
that didn't ruin Return
You
of the
guys,
King
check
for me.
this out, guys. This is great. Yeah,
Guys.
come here. Don't be shy. We'll
We
get
have-
an extra
we have
microphone.
s-
Do we have
we
an
have
extra
s-
microphone?
We have so many. No, we don't. We have so many toys.
Yes, we have so
and
many toys.
plushes that people have sent us over the years.
I know, isn't it great? It is so great.
This is amazing. I'm so
I can move
happy
my
that
stuff.
you're happy, Cliff.
Yeah.
For your little Treebeard, and I didn't know that.
You have
that
no
it
idea
was
how
it
happy
was
I am.
that rare of a character.
Because I know it's been so long since we've seen any real good Treebeard merch.
Well,
Okay,
Cliff, you weren't here at the intro, but
Kay says she had to put her glasses on so you could see Treebeard. I'm sorry, Oh, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, Dallas. Dallas is like, don't unbox it. I should have left it mint in box.
Dallas is trying to
know.
block the prequels. Why would you do that? The greatest thing that the new Star Wars movies can do is make the prequels better.
I don't have a problem with the prequels as much as a lot of people do. I'm kind of interested in the machinations of Palpatine and his crazy plot to order up a clone army that nobody really ordered, but it's really part of a Machiavellian plot. I'm intrigued by all of that. I don't mind the prequels so much.
Well, the reason I wanted to bring
don't mind them.
Bryan Young on the show today is because we're about to enter this phase of Tolkien fandom where
Yes.
new storytellers and new filmmakers and new writers and new directors are going to be telling new stories that are not based on anything that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote.
That's not an entirely true statement. That is a spurious statement, sir. I challenge you, sir.
Okay, I
I
challenge,
challenge you, sir, on that.
So we have
That
we
is
have
not quite correct.
We have late breaking news.
They have the actual material that Tolkien wrote. It's in the appendix. It's real. And
Okay.
it's really Tolkien. It's real history of Middle-earth stuff. It's real.
All right,
So
I found out what
you
season
mean
1
to
is
say,
going to be.
What you mean to say, no. I'll let you spoil that in 1 second. What you meant to say, I think, was that they're creating stuff that has not been fully written as a narrative, as a novel.
Right.
It's just notes.
There will
It's
be
historical
There will be
notes,
new
like
characters doing
blurbs of
new
history.
things. There will be
Yes.
old characters doing new things. There will be
Yes.
new characters created out of whole cloth, based on nothing but nothing.
Maybe some.
Yeah.
But those
Toriel
characters,
was just the start.
those characters created raw out of whole cloth will go in tandem with a bucket full of real characters that are really Tolkien characters that have always been there.
So that's why I wanted to bring on Bryan
yes.
Young today, because he's at the forefront of the dialogue that Star Wars fans are having about old versus new, and whether new filmmakers understand what made the characters so special. And
I am
at
deeply,
risk.
deeply enamored with Bryan's take on The Last Jedi. I know that we have an ongoing point of contention with JC, the proprietor
we know.
of. He does not care for The Last
No,
Jedi.
he doesn't.
But Bryan, in his very, very erudite style, and something I really appreciate about how he presents his ideas, I've gone tooth and comb through all of these Last Jedi threads,
Yes.
where he actually supports a lot of the things that Rian Johnson did that a lot of other fans are polarized about, that they don't like. And I really appreciate Bryan's critical eye, and he's going to come and share some of that
and the
critical eye with us today.
So we'll get him on Skype in a couple minutes here.
We will.
One
But
of
he
the
has a great
biggest
answer for the fans who don't like Canto Bite, and they don't like Projection Luke, and they have complaints about this and this and that.
So let me ask you. So
Poe Dameron not being told the plans.
These debates are what's going to happen in Tolkien fandom, because right now the
Yeah,
debate is whether Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson truly understand Luke Skywalker and what made him so endearing to fans.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans coming out of The Last Jedi say that The Last Jedi does not understand Luke Skywalker at all.
Thus, on Rotten Tomatoes, all the reviews from critics are, hooray, we love this movie, while the fan response is 54 or 55%.
So we found
negative.
So the first season of Amazon's billion-dollar Lord of the Rings series,
what do you know,
is going to be about young Aragorn.
That didn't take long. We've been predicting that for a few years.
So if
Where's
the Star
your
Wars
source? Where's your source?
if the Star Wars fandom is all about what these filmmakers are doing with a really, really popular character, the Amazon series is now putting at risk the most beloved king in fantasy, King Aragorn, King Elisar.
King Elisar, when
and
he becomes
all the
king. Yes.
how many nicknames did that guy have? Like 13?
He had so many aliases. Yes, but they weren't nicknames. They were aliases because he was hiding his identity because they were going to come for him and slit his throat in the middle of the night.
And that's what the show is. And that's what the show is about. The show is going to be about young Aragorn. That's the casting that's going on. That's
the casting for young Aragorn? I'm digging that. I think that's
They're doing casting right now. They've hired artists to start storyboarding and concepting a lot of the creatures and characters. They've taken pitches from they've taken 6 pitches from established showrunners and show creators from all of the shows.
Wow, that's good. What's your source?
The writers and the creators themselves.
Really?
And they do not want to acknowledge anything on Twitter anymore. If you've noticed, all of the creators that expressed interest in Lord of the Rings have gone silent on Lord of the Rings because they're all in contention now, and no one wants to ruin it.
A lot of them were saying, "I want to throw my hat in the ring. I do want to be part of this." And
One thing we know for sure.
Oh my gosh!
What we know for sure that one person is off the list.
Who's that?
Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, that's too bad.
Guillermo is not coming back to Middle Earth. It was such a traumatic experience doing 3 years of pre-production on The Hobbit and then having to leave the project and then not returning. It's a painful memory, and he's just moving on. He's winning Oscars. And
how he has moved on. The news that I just heard yesterday was that he's got a new horror anthology series coming to Netflix.
That's right.
In addition to the expansion of his Troll Hunters animated series, that will include 2. It is so good. It is so good. Tales of Arcadia is going to be the side series with wizards, and then Troll Hunters, Tales from Arcadia.
Troll Hunters, wizards,
and another one, a third one.
Yeah,
and it's going to be so great.
He is
so great.
He is super busy on stuff. So you know what? Let's
I'm so down for
Guillermo del
Toro.
Let's try to Skype Bryan and see.
But wait, that is not possibly to exclude maybe that Del Toro could come into the future, maybe in like 4th or 5th season, and direct an episode. You never know.
An olive branch will have to be.
And it'll have to be a very nice olive branch with a lot of olives on it. That's for sure.
Yes.
JC, thank you, sir. Thank you again for hosting us here today at Scum and Villainy. You know that we broadcast live from Hollywood at Scum and Villainy, and we're going to bring. Yes, there he is. We're going to bring our special guest onto the show in just a moment. Bryan, are you there,
Hello.
Bryan?
I'm here.
There
Hello,
you
hello.
are. Hey, buddy.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yes,
Been,
sir. There's Bryan.
Watching for the last little while, and hearing you say all kinds of nice things about me. It was great.
Well, no, believe me, if you had misfired, we would have been the first to tell you. But if you're that beautiful summary that the two of you did for Baron and Luthien a little while ago, that was really, really, really nicely done. because that is one of the biggest items. All Tolkien fans have been going crazy since that book was posthumously published. But that was really great. And now I realize this man has the capacity to make the distinctions very clear in Tolkien, as well as you can in the Lucas canon, as well as I'm sure you can in a lot of other IPs. But we are on a threshold right now. Our fandom is on a threshold of what is about to come, as my producer and co-host Justin has so adroitly said. Mm-hmm. And what's going to come in the future now? We have our own fandom, maybe like a touchstone of one of the better fandoms, which has not been cannibalizing itself and not eating itself alive from the inside, like a lot of the toxicity we've seen.
Well, that's why I wanted to connect Lord of the Rings and Star Wars as much as possible, because there is a toxicity in the fandom right now, especially on Twitter and Reddit, that the Tolkien fans have not had. Like we're really wonderful people that all ages and all walks of life and all political sides come together in their passion for Tolkien, and even the changes in Lord of the Rings no one grabbed onto that and made it a movement. It was just kind of like, you think that, I think that. And Bryan, I just wanted to maybe start off with, what do you think about fandom right now on Twitter?
Fandom on Twitter right now is difficult. You've got groups of fans that I think of any franchise that are in a very vocal minority who feel very attacked that their opinion isn't validated as widely as they wish it could be. And so anytime you mention something that they feel strongly about, even if they don't follow you, they will go and they set up bots to actually go and notify them when people mention things. I still can't tweet the title of The Last Jedi without having someone come up in my mentions to tell me how bad of a movie they thought it was.
I know. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So Cliff, we've been around since 1998 when the Force.net was relevant, and now we've been very active on Twitter.
Oh wow! Now that's going back. The Force.net. Yes, this is.
Yeah.
But the original namesake for your connection to the fan base was the Force.net.
Yeah.
My original connection was working for Ian McKellen over at McKellen.com, even before he was cast as Magneto and before he knew he would ever play Gandalf. So going back to old roots, really old roots.
But so we've weathered fan reaction, but when The Hobbit came out, and The Hobbit is a prequel trilogy in some aspects that has little to do with the book, but that's
how it was marketed.
It wasn't toxic. It wasn't. The Hobbit Twitter was not toxic like Star Wars Twitter is. I'm wondering if you guys can figure out what the difference is. Why is there a visceral reaction to Star Wars right now, where when The Hobbit came out, with all the changes that they made, love triangles and female characters that didn't exist, why isn't that a critical mass issue?
That's an interesting thing. Let's look through this.
I think one of the issues that you're dealing with, not that I think Tolkien fandom is small, but I think they are a little bit more united in background or interest level. And Star Wars fans, if you look at how much money and how many tickets get sold for a Star Wars movie, the majority of fans aren't the super fans participating in the discourse.
Yeah.
Right? Most people who are Star Wars fans don't participate on Twitter to talk about Star Wars beyond, hey, the new movie came out and I liked it, and that's about it. They don't get into that deep dive sort of thing that I think more Tolkien fans, a higher proportion of Tolkien fans do. And so with Star Wars, you're looking at a much larger pool of people, and when you have a much larger group of people like that, just the statistics, statistically, you're going to get more people that are sort of bad seeds or bad actors coming in to talk about things. So I think the pool of Tolkien is just a little smaller.
Maybe so.
Which isn't...
Yes, and I've detected a variance in age. It was something like as Justin pointed out, that our audience that is 25 and younger wholly embrace The Hobbit. And they embrace The Hobbit a lot more than would fans my age, who are approaching late 40s. Okay. And then when we find out that The Hobbit has been so significantly changed, with new characters that never existed, and all this stuff from the appendices about where did Gandalf go, now all of a sudden it's hard to explain to fans, but we like explaining to the younger fans. It's not like, I'm going to hate on The Hobbit, and I'm going to hate on you younglings because you like it. Let me offer instead a little bit of guidance. Here is the difference between the movies and the book. And here's a beautiful thing. Let me introduce this to you. It's the book. Yes, let me hand it to you. And so we feel like there's an encouraging opportunity to show the younger fans, you might want to embrace the Hobbit movies, but we embrace this puppy in a whole different way. And here's why. Let's take a look at the material. And you also get a chance to do that. You get to drive a new audience back to the originals, don't you?
Yeah, I think there's definitely generational shifts where the introduction is a different property, right? There's people whose only interaction with Star Wars is the video games.
Boom. Yeah.
There's people whose only interaction with Star Wars, their introduction was the cartoons, Clone Wars or Rebels.
Yes.
And
God,
being
I
able
love
to
the animated Star Wars. That stuff has been gold. It has been gold.
It really has been.
Yeah.
And it's been so inspired by Lord of the Rings. I mean, everything with Ahsoka is fairly Gandalf-like.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But
yes. Thank you for mentioning that. I love me some Ahsoka. That's a very good analogy. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Dave Filoni said that when he was making Rebels, his touchstone for Ahsoka and her story and how things were playing out were Tolkien's Book of Letters. That was his inspiration for those things. But when you have these different generations latching on to different parts of Star Wars, there's an opportunity, I think, to do that, but to bring people into the other parts. But with Star Wars fans, for some reason, and I'm not sure where the disconnect is, it's I need to protect the part of Star Wars I like. And for a lot of them, it's only 2.5 movies. It's A New Hope, Empire, and half of Return of the Jedi before the Ewoks show up. And if you fail the purity test of liking just those, then what can I do for you, right? You know, the prequels were the first sort of split in our fandom.
Yeah. And
you see kids who grew up with it, who were little kids when it came out or were born after it came out. There's no divide. You know, Lucasfilm will do polls about their favorite movies or people's favorite movies, and they're just as well liked. As anything else. It's you realize that those people that are sort of tearing fandom apart or making it toxic, they really are just a small minority, and I think that's probably going to be true in any fandom.
Indeed. This is very interesting. A small minority.
Well, we saw that in all the Tolkien fandoms, like the ones in the 60s, the Flower Children that grew up with Leonard Nimoy singing Ballad of Bilbo Baggins, and grew up with Ralph Bakshi and the animated Hobbit. You know, those are the ones that are like silver-haired and did not appreciate all the changes that were made in the Lord of the Rings movies. But everyone our age that was 20 and 30 something when those movies came out loved it like nothing else and won all the awards. And then when The Hobbit came out, we were 15 years older. We had a lesser opinion of Hobbit, but all the kids coming up with The Hobbit loved it and loved the characterizations.
They loved Radagast pulling a stick insect out of his mouth, while the rest of us were going, "Oh God, that's as bad as Qui-Gon dragging his hand out to snatch that tongue from Jar Jar." You know.
And see, and I liked both of those moments.
You see, exactly.
Yeah, so I've got my Jar Jar shirt.
That's great, dude.
But
that's so great.
It is interesting to watch those divides and to see where fandom can come together. But I think for me, the key in being able to really latch on to the new stuff as well as the old and kind of maintain my enthusiasm for it is being able to trust the people that are making it as both Star Wars fans and storytellers. right? And I think with Peter Jackson with The Hobbit, I mean, he had a very difficult, row to hoe, as it were, because he had to create something that matched visually with the tone of The Lord of the Rings, but still be based on what feels very much like a kid's book. And you have to wonder, like, maybe is this the sanitized kids version of the story? Can we get the more Lord of the Rings version? And I don't think those movies are perfect, but I really loved them, regardless.
Yeah.
And it's trusting that he was making the best decisions he thought he needed to make for both the source material as a fan, because I don't think there's anyone who could doubt that he is, and as a storyteller. Instead of attacking him for the decisions he did make, step back and try to understand why he made those decisions, from that place of being a fan and a storyteller. And I think that's the key. So for me, when I approached Last Jedi, it wasn't from a place of how do I come into combat with this film because it doesn't give me the things I expected or wanted.
Yes.
How do I understand Rian Johnson as a fan of Star Wars and a storyteller, and understand what he was trying to accomplish with that movie, and take those pieces of art on their own at face value rather than trying to insert what I would have wanted personally on them.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
we got a comment in the chat room right now from Dallas Barnett. He's an actor in New Zealand that actually worked on The Hobbit. And Dallas says, just a thought, I already have a full Bill Ferny Sr. headcanon that I'd happily contribute. I also have the same haircut. Yeah, so we already have actors, fans, writers, creative people that have this whole headcanon of all of Tolkien's characters already in their head, and they just want to see what's in their imagination on screen. That's setting us up for a bad time.
Yeah, no, I think that's honestly a lot of the problem people had with the prequels, was that they had it in their mind that all 3 episodes were going to be Revenge of the Sith, not realizing that 3 movies of Jedi slaughtering would be monotonous and probably boring.
Yes.
That they didn't appreciate what George Lucas was doing in introducing a younger audience and kind of bringing them in a way I think J.K. Rowling did with Harry Potter, right? Where it's like, hey, you're 7, you're going to read this book, and then you're 8, you're going to read the next book and actually grow up with them. Kids can do that with Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones through adolescence, and then Revenge of the Sith can see, horrible, Shakespearean tragedy. But then renew that with Luke Skywalker and then that love of father and son.
Yeah.
We got
another comment.
I just think the new TV show has a really great opportunity to bring people in, younger people with different things, the same way, with Aragorn.
Yeah, and like Sarah in the chat room, I'm reading the chat room on Facebook right now, says, the trailers for Solo just didn't grab me. If they had included Grand Admiral Thrawn, that would be a totally different story. So here we have a regular in our Lord of the Rings chat room, obviously a big fan of Star Wars.
Who knows a lot of these secondary and tertiary characters from Star Wars.
So she's not
even
even grabbed to watch Solo. The trailers have done nothing for her. But if there was a character that was already in her imagination, placed there by expanded universe, it would be a different story. So I feel like we're about to enter a similar phase where it's like they could release a trailer with all these characters that are unfamiliar, and people will be like, I'm kind of, But how do we turn? Let's get very specific with Sarah. How do we turn her into a fan of Solo? How do we get her into the theater and enjoy it?
Well, I've seen Solo twice, and my first reaction is to say, if Grand Admiral Thrawn is the character that you're interested in, go watch Rebels. Yeah. He's amazing in Rebels, and there's a whole book dedicated to him as well. Yeah. But as far as that old Legends feel to Solo feels like it's come right out of those old books. So if she's a fan of those late 1970s, early 1980s Han Solo and Lando books. This is very much that, with characters that are patterned after the supporting characters in those books. They don't have the name recognition that Grand Admiral Thrawn does, but most characters in Star Wars introduced in the books, most of them don't have that. But we do have Thrawn elsewhere. And we do know, based on the timeline for this, Thrawn is still barely just getting into the galaxy. So him as a character, he'd be, a very low-ranking official, and it wouldn't be that exciting to pit him against Han Solo.
Yeah, and Cliff, here's another comment from the chat room that says, Catherine says, Tolkien fandom has literature to fall back on, and goes into a bigger thing. But that comment alone, that statement, is is not. This is a new era that we're about to enter with this Amazon series, because this Amazon series does not have literature to fall back on.
That is not entirely accurate to say, is it?
Well, I think what you're looking at is the same sort of thing we are dealing with in this era of Star Wars, right? Where Tolkien left notes and sort of a blueprint of things that they're going to be drawing from here, in the same way that George Lucas did for everything we've seen so far. This Solo movie was in development before the sale to Disney.
Okay.
All of the Underworld elements came about from the 80 episodes of the Underworld TV show that he had developed with Ronald Moore.
Right.
And The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, if you read the art of books of those two movies, you can see that it's all built on the notes that George did. They changed based on the way the collaborative nature of filmmaking just works. But we're still dealing with those notes. So although we don't have published literature or published notes the way Tolkien fandom might, we do have they do have all that internally, so that we are still mining the mind of the maker.
Okay. Now that's a very good perspective. I didn't realize that. But it also makes me think further to that point that Lucas is still alive. Professor Tolkien, he shed this mortal coil in 1973. I was barely 4 years old. I did not yet know that in 6 more years I would grow up to become an obsessed and very thirsty fan of Tolkien. I wouldn't have known that when I was 4 years old. But the impact of having Lucas still around may be negligible, because we know he sold off the farm to Disney. But it's encouraging to know, as you've just pointed out, Bryan, that they are using a lot of Lucas's notes and stuff. That is really kind of encouraging. I'm encouraged all around by Amazon's immediate press release. As soon as they told us we're going to blow $500 million on this, they also said we're not going to do another parroting echo chamber of the War of the Ring, or the events of the War of the Ring. Peter Jackson already had his lightning in the bottle, and Amazon said, we're not going to even try that. We're going to expand and have so much other stuff, and this does give them the chance to do an anthology series. Come on in, we're open, have a drink. Bryan, I've been wanting to ask you this. Do you like the idea of an anthology series that Amazon could approach that is open to a different storyline and different characters every season? Because I'm so keen on that. Like the American Horror Story format. I'm really keen on that.
I would really love to see that. That's something, taking one season in the way they do seasons now, where it's 12 episodes or whatever. I feel like you need that much running time to do something like Baron and Luthien, or some of the other stories there in the Silmarillion, or young Aragorn or whatever. Just take one story, give it to us in a season, and then give us something else later and for the next year.
There's a lot of connective tissue. They have 100 and something pages just from the appendix. There's so many thousands and thousands of years of connective tissue that Professor Tolkien is very clear about the migration of peoples, the ancestry and the genealogy of certain key figures who are related to other key historical figures, it's really crisp. It's in black and white. It's all there. They have a treasure trove of stuff they can get. And I can't tell you how enthused I am that this new news is that the young Aragorn arc is coming early in the game. Because that can only help hook the audience. We love this character.
But was there equal amount of notes for Luke Skywalker?
Well, I mean, Luke Skywalker, as far as notes for a young Luke Skywalker, he's just a dirt farmer, so you don't need a whole lot of notes for him.
Or notes for an old Skywalker, as is the case with.
So for old Skywalker, this was something that Lucas had actually said. Again, if you read the Art of books, that Luke was off trying to not be a Jedi for whatever reason, and that's about as far as it went. And they were exploring that with Michael Arndt as the screenwriter originally,
right?
And enough of his work that he did for Lucas based on Lucas's blueprint made it into The Force Awakens to the point where he's still a credited screenwriter. And I know that's guild arbitration. So, and then when you look at the reasons why Luke would be like that, I think Rian Johnson really tapped into that. It makes sense from a mythological standpoint too. I think with Lucas, with Tolkien, you say, well, we have literature to fall back on, but with Lucas, you have mythology to fall back on.
Indeed.
Because that's where everything was coming from. And with Luke at this point, you can go back to the story of Kronos and Zeus and violence begetting violence and needing to stop that cycle. You can look at other points in mythology as well to see these archetypes play out. And that's where your guideposts are going to be in a way that's a little bit different than with Tolkien, but they're still there.
We've got a comment in the chat room. Kevin says Tariel was a peripheral character. She was a plausible creation. Fair enough. While altering Luke is a major change. And people in the chat room are agreeing with him. That's
coming from the original argument that Luke was changed. That's
my issue.
I'm not sure I would describe Luke Skywalker as being tampered with or fundamentally changed.
And so I guess the question for you, Bryan, is where is this coming from in the fandom? Where is this concept of Luke was changed?
I think it's coming from the fact that we had 25 years of stories about Jedi Master Luke Skywalker being a Mary Sue character about what a Jedi Grandmaster could be in the era beyond the Empire.
Right. And
adding flaws to him and adding struggles to him that make a lot of sense for the Luke that the Luke that we saw, humanized him more and made him more interesting and made him a human, a very real three-dimensional character rather than a legend. And I think that's what those movies are commenting on. You hear about the myth of Luke Skywalker through The Force Awakens and through The Last Jedi, but Luke is still a person. I don't know, Luke is 23 or 24 years old in Return of the Jedi. And I don't know if you've ever met someone who is in their 50s or 60s who is the same person.
Thank you for saying that.
That they were when they were 24.
Thank you. Thank you.
And they have flaws, and he has struggles that he deals with, and he has very real human emotions about things, right? And then you go back and you look at, in Last Jedi, the sequence where he's considering attacking Ben.
The Rashomon.
Right?
The Rashomon sequence. Such a great connection. Yes.
You see that Luke he struggles with the dark side in the exact same way he does in Empire and the same way he does in Jedi. So it's not that Luke is different, it's that Luke is still struggling, but he's struggling with a lesser degree. In Empire, he tells his masters that he has to leave his training to save his friends. In Return of the Jedi, he tells Darth Vader that he attacks Darth Vader, tapping into the dark side, of the potential of the dark side, and almost kills him based on the threat of his friends and family.
Yes.
And seeing this future in Ben makes him consider it. I don't believe that Luke was actually going to kill Ben, but in Ben's perception, he was. So it it fits with everything we know about Luke in the canon. Granted, you have to ignore all of the canon that got thrown out in 2014, but it is consistent wholly with everything we know about Luke and about people and the struggles that they have, especially as they grow older and have doubts about themselves or regrets.
Indeed. So it's interesting that an audience that gets polarized by this treatment of Luke is perhaps feeling like they don't want to let go of all that other canon prior to 2014. Maybe that they're having less of an issue with Rian Johnson's storytelling than they are having the difficulty in rejecting all these other side novels and things and games that they've been digesting as lore all this time. That might be part of it.
Well, and I think the other part of it is a very personal thing, right? Mm-hmm. How many people watched Return of the Jedi and didn't feel like Luke was the ultimate hero?
Yeah.
And to see your hero falter is a very difficult and challenging thing. There's a moment in the behind the scenes of The Last Jedi where Rian Johnson is telling Poe telling Oscar Isaac a bit of direction, where he says, you're not ready to learn this lesson yet, right? As in the scene between Leia and Poe, where she's demoting him. And he says, you're not ready to learn this lesson yet. And I wonder if some of the people who've reacted poorly to Luke and his character arc in The Last Jedi are like Poe in that sense, where they're just not ready to learn that lesson yet. They're not ready to let go of their personal issues, their ego, or whatever that is, to understand that.
I get that. I'm totally intrigued by. Are you guys finishing that up? I'm intrigued by the idea that Justin thinks that our own fandom for Tolkien Fandom is about to be bitten by this irresistible urge that tweeting and social media gives us to throw down. I mean, with the power of a keyboard giving you some anonymity and some protection, everybody's willing to throw down polarizing statements and drag people on Twitter like that's what it is. But I find that not helpful, and I'm very weary of that. And I hope, we'll see you in a second. I don't think that our fandom, which has been rather gentle, we've got a very gentle and rather friendly, creative bunch of people in our Ringer fandom. And in my explorations, when I did the documentary film of Ringer's Lord of the Fans, and I started to dig a little deeper into how people were responding to Tolkien, there's a magnanimity, for lack of a better word. There's a big-hearted, magnanimous quality to Tolkien fans in general, and they're not always that quick to see someone else fall or fail in their understanding of it. No, we don't. We're usually more interested in encouraging people to have a better understanding of Tolkien instead of encouraging them to fail in their understanding. So I don't know that polarization, no matter what Amazon manages to do, I don't know if it's going to happen the same way that we've seen it happen with The Last Jedi. I really don't.
So what?
That's just me predicting.
I wonder if Harry Potter might be a more apt scenario, where you had a very dedicated fandom in that same way, relying on the literature and then bolstered by the movies. And then now in this new era of Harry Potter, where you have the cursed child and Johnny Depp, the issues surrounding Johnny Depp in Fantastic Beasts. And I wonder if there's a potential for that sort of fallout, because I felt the Harry Potter fandom, watching it from the outside, was very much the same way. But then again, before the split of the prequels, I thought Star Wars fans were the same way too. And social media has just exacerbated all of that.
Yeah.
So what do you think is driving this negativity of, Facebook groups of fans trying to downvote the Star Wars Rotten Tomatoes score before it even opens? And the follow-up to that is, how do we prevent that from Tolkien fandom? Or maybe it just it won't happen here because we're better people.
Well, I think there's a lot of different reasons people are doing it. There's a faction of people who are doing it because none of this is that old expanded universe. So there's people who felt like they'd invested so much in, 20 plus years of books. And that's understandable that they felt that investment was tossed away. I don't think it was, personally. And I invested just as much time into those books as the others. There's another faction who, really interestingly, they're DC movie fans. And
the DC movie fans. Okay, yeah.
They don't like that these movies get better rated and reviewed than the DC universe movies, that Zack Snyder is this unsung brilliant genius and Batman versus Superman is actually somehow a masterpiece and no one else can see it, so we need to torpedo everyone else's enjoyment. And that's honestly one group. And then there's another group who they're that Star Wars was only good for 2.5 movies and the rest of this is ridiculous and I don't like any of you, and we need to make sure that everyone knows that this is the original bit of Star Wars. I don't want to assign the torpedoing on Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb to one specific group as a monolith, because there's so many different splinter factions of disaffected people. Some of them aren't even in Star Wars fandom,
Really?
trying to do that.
Good point.
Indeed. Now,
I just want to bring up. We had Chris Gore on last week.
We did.
Founder of Film Threat.
Always great to talk with Chris.
And he brought up the good point that when Empire Strikes Back came out, and he's old enough to remember these reviews, Empire Strikes Back reviews, especially from core fandom, was extremely negative. That, how could the feel-good gunslinger A New Hope movie be turned into this dark tragedy where everyone's related? I mean, the reviews coming out of Empire was like, they don't understand Luke. How dare they? They've ruined the character. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it very much does. We have these cycles after every Star Wars movie. Force Awakens did the same thing and I think with Force Awakens it was a period of, I think, white supremacy in some situations where there were groups of Star Wars fans who felt threatened for having a black stormtrooper for whatever reason, or sexists who felt threatened by Rey being the would-be Jedi.
Yeah.
And it's, you hear Rey's a Mary Sue. Well, if Rey's a Mary Sue, Luke is a Mary Sue, because they have the same story pattern.
I hear that Admiral Holdo was only added for one reason, for social justice warriors to get the satisfaction of having a woman put Poe Dameron in his place, and that it's all just weird corporate kickback of... and who is this beautiful little Hobbit lass who is joining you? Hey there.
This is my daughter Valkyrie, and we're actually...
Hey, sweetheart.
Our bedtime story right now is actually The Hobbit. So
no way.
That's wonderful. I love
that's
The
what
Hobbit.
I'm reading to her right now.
Hey, here's a Hobbit right here. What chapter are you guys on?
We're still in chapter 2. We just started a few days ago after we finished Alice in Wonderland.
Are you doing troll voices? Are you going to do some troll voices?
I have absolutely started troll voices.
Dude, that's wonderful. I love that. That's great. I love that.
But where were we?
Yes.
We were coming up to something.
We were talking about
the fan reaction to Empire versus the new movies.
I wanted to bring up the documentary of The People versus George Lucas. You're familiar with that film, right?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
I met the director, the creator of that film. He's a great talent.
Yes.
He was really onto something, because he was trying to, and I recommend it for our entire viewers who are watching our live show. Get yourself a copy or get a stream The People versus George Lucas, because when you get a look at that, you'll understand how people start to feel ownership, how they start to feel literally ownership over the mythology that they are digesting, that they are consuming. Isn't that an unusual psychological place for us to be as consumers?
But as consumers, it's interesting that I think capitalism is kind of what poisons that in some way, where you look at mythology. We were using mythology as religion, and it was something that everyone shared in and owned in their own way. And this is an extension of that. People use Tolkien and Star Wars and Harry Potter and Spider-Man as that mythology for their lives. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with taking ownership in that way. It's when you take ownership for it in the way of everyone else.
Ah, well said. Well said. Like in your spirited defense of the Canto Bight sequence, when you said in that tweet, one of my favorite things you said was, you can tell me that you don't like it, but you can't tell me that that sequence doesn't serve a purpose for the characters and the themes. And I really appreciated that thread.
And it's true to Star Wars.
Because it will let me have some more juicy arguments with JC and other people about Canto Bight.
Well, look, I wanted to just say that the reaction to the treatment of Luke Skywalker's character in these last two movies, the fact that he was disrespected in Force Awakens to have 5 seconds of screen time, and no dialogue.
That wasn't the main complaint. The main complaint, the main complaint about The Force Awakens was that
it was marketed.
Was that his sister was in trouble? The Resistance is in trouble. Why isn't Luke there to help any of them through these crises? Why isn't he there to help when Han Solo gets killed? Why isn't he there to help at all? To help his sister? We find out the tragic answers to that in The Last Jedi.
And no one liked what happened, and a lot of people did not like what happened.
That's true.
In The Last Jedi. So having said that, now that we're going into the story of Aragorn.
Yes, connecting this tissue to Aragorn.
How do we navigate a series about Aragorn that will undoubtedly change some of his motivations and what people have in their head?
The first thing you do is you don't cast Stuart Townsend. That's the first thing you do. Just saying.
I
Deep cuts on this show.
I think a more instructive example would be Solo than Luke, right? Because with this Solo movie, we know that this character needs to grow into the character that we're going to know and love.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
With Luke in Force Awakens and Last Jedi, it's going off in a different direction, and there's a different set of stakes there in that we don't know what's going to happen with him. So I think Solo might be a little bit of a better one-to-one analysis, and
yes,
I wonder, is there in Tolkien fandom an attachment to Viggo Mortensen the same way culturally we've had to Harrison Ford?
Maybe not, because Aragorn has been played by many other powerful actors as well. John Hurt played the first Aragorn. Yeah. And John Hurt is one of the best and most powerful lead British actors ever. And God rest his soul, he's still one of my favorite actors. But people are more attached to Aragorn as a concept, as a figure in literature than they are to Viggo. Now, I know a lot of people disagreed with Viggo's politics. When the first Lord of the Rings trilogy came out, Viggo was staunchly anti-George W. Bush. He was anti-Iraq war, and he made his positions known when he went to the press junkets to support the release of The Return of the King, etc., etc. And I got wind and saw a lot of messages on our early message boards and on our IRC chat at theonering.net that these people were like, I'm not going to have anything to do with Lord of the Rings ever again because I can't stand Viggo's politics. But that was only a blip on the radar compared to the conversations we're having now about the way Rian Johnson is treating characters and canon and Star Wars. But I think that people are less enamored with the person who will play. They're really, really enamored with where Aragorn will go. It is such an adroit comparison that you make, sir, that Ron Howard has the job of letting us know that Solo is definitely walking in his own shoes. And now the showrunners at Amazon have to give us a reason to better relate to somebody that we already strongly relate to and find out.
Yeah, that's the best example I've ever heard. Like, what that Solo movie is going to be is as close to a precursor to what is going to happen with Amazon. Like, we're taking one of the most iconic characters in cinema and storytelling ever, and now making him 20 years old.
We're going to have, in this first season, if it's all about young Aragorn, we're going to meet his mother. We're going to understand why Gilraen took him to the elves of Rivendell to protect her baby from harm, why he took an alias to hide his identity. We're certainly going to get to the hunt for Gollum and making friends with Legolas and Gandalf, because young Aragorn meets all of these characters. So they've got a lot of stuff to go with in that first season.
Without going in too deep into spoilers on Solo, since you've seen the movie twice already.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
I mean, do they explore his backstory and the reasons why and the choices he made, or is it just kind of like 1, 2, 3?
No, they really do. So I was sort of expecting just to get that heist movie feel where it's just going to be, this is going to be young Han. He's going to act kind of the same. But the Kasdans really took an opportunity to take a literary turn with it, where Lawrence Kasdan had the opportunity to write Han in Empire, Jedi, and Force Awakens, and write Han's ending. He was able to take that ending and actually add more meaning to it, and take the middle part of Han's journey and add more meaning to it, and take the beginning of Han's journey and add more meaning to it, so that one of the things I think Star Wars does better than most franchises is that every installment forces you to go back and reevaluate everything you've seen across the franchise.
Yeah.
And my hope for a young Aragorn film, or a young Aragorn series, would be that they force me to reevaluate everything I'd seen, whether that's his relationship with Elrond, or his relationship with Gandalf, or anyone, to see new things in those performances. You know, a lot of people got upset, to stay away from spoilers for Solo, but to use A New Hope in the prequels as an example. People got upset that Obi-Wan knew R2 before, right? But when you watch that scene in A New Hope where he says, I don't seem to remember ever owning a droid, very interesting.
Yeah.
And you watch it knowing that they knew each other, there's a new sly sort of coyness to it. And it changes the performance and adds a new layer to it.
Yes.
And so hopefully, I think that's what Solo does in spades for Han and Lando and Chewie. And I hope that that's what we'll get out of Aragorn in a series for him, that we'll be able to go back and watch the Lord of the Rings movies and say, that's why he made that choice. That's why he said that. That's why he said this the way he said it.
Yes, sir. That is exactly the task that Amazon's writing team has in front of them.
Now, speaking of
Couldn't be better said.
Exactly. Speaking of writing teams, Solo, of course, was written by Lawrence Kasdan, who is the most well-received Star Wars movie writer. He wrote Empire. Everyone,
excuse me,
says that Lawrence Kasdan, of all people, understand these characters best. Have you given any thought to who's on your short list of writers and directors that should be involved in the Lord of the Rings series?
Well, I mean, Guillermo, but he's off the list.
Yeah.
I want to see Guillermo del Toro do stuff like that. I think Alfonso Cuarón would be really interesting too. I really loved what he did in the Harry Potter universe.
Oh, yes.
I think he made
in only one movie.
I think he made the best Harry Potter movie and the best adaptation of a Harry Potter movie. I know that's controversial in some circles, but I believe
that's widely accepted. That's widely accepted, and hell, Children of Men is one of the greatest pieces of cinema ever.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely.
So I agree with that.
And so he's sort of always on my list. I would be interested in seeing them explore. I really would love to see on a TV series some of the TV talent that is coming through with Game of Thrones. So there's women directing Game of Thrones that would give, I think that there's one thing Lord of the Rings is missing across the board, not across the board. We still had Fran Walsh and so on and so forth, but a feminine touch, and to have some of the female show directors that work on Game of Thrones or any of the other shows at that level, to bring them to come in and work episodically on this, I think would be a really great move. Do
you think?
No, I mean, I'm just excited to see what they give me, and hope that whoever it is a fan of Tolkien.
Do you think?
Agreed.
Like Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire Strikes Back, is all in on these new Star Wars movies, and he's been a part. He's a part of it actively.
And I think we're grateful to have him be.
Do you think
so active?
Philippa and Fran Walsh, as the Oscar-winning writers of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, would they be appropriate to showrun and do the hiring of the directors and everything?
I would love to see that. Personally, I wouldn't have any objection to that. I think that would be great. I think they've proven with Oscars that they understand the material, as well or better than anybody, and they understand what it takes to get it made. So I think they would be even a safe choice.
And I also think that the controversy behind Tauriel's love triangle proved, you become greater and smarter because of the controversies in your life. And now that they've weathered through being the screenwriters on The Hobbit, when the studio forced a love triangle during reshoots, wasn't part of the original script. Nobody wanted it. The actress didn't want it. The writers didn't want it. But the studio said, write it or else. So now that they've navigated that politics, they know, Philippa and Fran know when to push their agenda. I wouldn't even call it an agenda. They know when to push, and they know when to not, and kind of take feedback. And I think there's a ton of well-known filmmakers that maybe push and block off, and I think Bryan Fuller has that reputation. He did Hannibal. He was going to do Star Trek Discovery, I mean, what do you think about a guy like Bryan Fuller, or a guy like J. Michael Straczynski?
I think Joe Straczynski would be great. I mean, I've really enjoyed everything he's done.
What has he worked on lately?
I think that could work. I think the key is to set it up the way Disney has treated Lucasfilm and Marvel, right? Where Amazon needs to create a space. They need to hire the right person, their Kathleen Kennedy or their Kevin Feige, to make sure that the filmmakers are insulated from the studio politics and are able to tell the best stories possible.
Yes.
And then to be able to pull back and say, this story wasn't working, we're going to redo it. I think Solo and Rogue One are both really great examples of the people in charge saying, this isn't turning out as well as it should. We need to pull back and make sure that it's the best story we can tell.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I just think whoever is going to be in charge on Amazon's part running all of this needs to be cognizant of that.
Yep.
And needs to be able to have the strength that says, this isn't working. Fire the directors, hire new ones, rewrite it, reshoot it. And Lucasfilm did that on Rogue One. They reshot the whole movie.
Thankfully, and
Solo,
it worked.
They reshot upwards of 70% or more of the movie with Ron Howard. And I think there needs someone of that caliber at managing the whole Tolkien world to say,
yep,
this episode isn't working. Put it in the scrap.
Well, I think what they need is, again, the same thing Lucasfilm and Marvel have, where they have a story group, right? Where they have people who know the material inside and out, who know where to reference all of the material, and can help guide it. That are people. I mean, this is why I have a lot of faith in Star Wars right now, because those people on the story group aren't just Star Wars fans. They're really talented storytellers. And I think Tolkien deserves that.
Yeah, I
Thank
agree.
you for that. Yes.
Hey, we've got about 10 minutes left in the show today. So I wanted to switch gears for our last segment and talk a little bit about the power of Twitter. We've kind of seen at the One Ring, we started off as a blog, and then we moved to WordPress, and that's where Fan was. And then we had our BBS and our bulletin board community, V-Bulletin. We had an IRC chat room. and that's where the conversation took place. Now it seems to have moved all onto Twitter and Facebook. Even the Lord of the Rings subreddit is not that active in conversation. So I'm wondering, we've been stuck. The One Ring has been stuck kind of at 94,000 followers on Twitter. How do we grow from here? I feel like we've had some expert commentary do some Twitter threads, but what makes a Twitter thread stand out amongst all that noise?
Controversy. I think that's I happened to step into The Last Jedi. I mean, like, I've been on Twitter for almost since 2009, and just sort of slowly crawled up with followers. And it wasn't until Last Jedi I went from 4,500 followers to almost 14,000 in the last few months, just because I think that there was a struggle to understand it. So I think for me, it's been, I can personally, my personal voice on Twitter is to help people understand things that maybe they missed, or to connect dots that they didn't see, and just to be relevant. And right now, on the cusp of a new TV show coming out, I think you've got the biggest opportunity to do that, to tie what's come before with what's coming now, and just bring that sharp analysis that you've all been capable of. I told you before, when we booked the show, One Ring I've been reading that site since the Lord of the Rings days, because I was really into those movies, and especially the behind the scenes aspects that website then gave me. So it's you're on the radar, more so than me.
Yeah, well, we don't take it lightly, and
That's true.
We keep our conversation and our at a high level.
Yes.
To not get dragged down into Stan Twitter that much, but
Stan Twitter.
How did you get a blue check mark before us?
So I was having a problem with it was back before they changed the verification procedures.
Oh, okay.
And I was having a problem with people both harassing me, and there was a couple people who were impersonating me. But I went through and looked up the criteria for verifying, and I met all of it. So all I had to do was literally just send them in a photocopy of my driver's license, and they verified me.
Oh my goodness. They don't do that anymore.
No, they don't. So I kind of snuck in right when the going was good.
And where does your Twitter handle come from?
Haha, that's a fun story. So my Twitter handle is @Swankmatron, and it sort of has some Star Wars roots back in the late 90s, when we first discovered that Darth was a title or a moniker rather than a name. Mm-hmm. And I was playing a lot of video games, mainly StarCraft back then, and I needed a screen name. And there was a joke on Simpsons about Armin Tanzarian, who was Principal Skinner's real name, in his apartment about a pornographic magazine called Swank. And I thought that a Sith Lord who was named after a pornographic magazine would be hilarious. So my screen name on all those video games from like 1998 until probably 2005 was Darth Swank. And then when we started the website that I started that actually got me into the fan enthusiast press was Big Shiny Robot, and we decided that we all wanted to have robot names.
Right.
So there were so many people who referred to me online already as Swank. I just needed to transfer it into a robot name. So Swankmatron became my robot name, and that it just stuck. I've been Swank for 20 years now.
That's pretty good.
That's
pretty good.
Can you imagine when you created that you would still be using it 20 years later professionally?
No, I keep telling my son, like, be very careful about what you use as your PSN handle, because it's going to stick with you whether you like it or not.
And so you're not just on Twitter now. You're like writing, and you're getting paid to write for other blogs.
Yeah. I've been doing that for a while. So in 2012, I started writing for StarWars.com.
Wow. Okay.
As my first column was called "The Cinema Behind Star Wars," and I would take the cinematic influences that influenced Star Wars and break them down so that I could help. I'm a big believer in using Star Wars to lead people to really great art behind it.
Yes.
Whether that's Lawrence of Arabia or 2001 or Bridge on the River Kwai or Clone Wars has been great because it lets me talk about Alfred Hitchcock movies and different Kurosawa movies other than Hidden Fortress and Seven Samurai. I got to write a piece about how Stray Dog influenced an episode of Clone Wars called Lightsaber Lost, and it's sort of beat for beat the same thing. So I've just sort of been growing it from there, starting with Big Shiny Robot, which gave me the opportunity to have a portfolio of writing that I could take to say, hey, Star Wars, let me write for you. And then that kind of happened for other outlets as well. So I was writing for Star Wars Insider Magazine for many years, and now I write for How Stuff Works. And because of my Twitter threads about Last Jedi, Sci-Fi picked up my work there, so I'm writing for Sci-Fi now as well. And when the Cinema Behind Star Wars column ended for StarWars.com, /Film very graciously picked it up after they saw my threads there as well. So just a lot of, I think that there's room for scholarly discourse around popular entertainment, and it's just something I really love doing.
That's what
Excellent.
That's what Cliff.
Yes.
You made your name in a section we called Green Books. That was exactly that. It was scholarly context of the upcoming Lord of the Rings movies. Right?
Yeah, a lot of people wanted to come to an online magazine, and we had a bunch of wonderful people contributing as writers, not just myself, to provide a lot of insights into the languages and the lore and the actual real biographical, connections of Tolkien's life to his work, and like it lasted for many, many, many years, and we ended up getting lucky and publishing a couple of collections of our essays and articles from the website.
In a book, in a couple books, right?
Thank you, Simon & Schuster, and the nice people at Cold Spring Press. That was a fun bit.
So I guess my final question on this topic is...
But yes, I agree. There's always room for scholarly, gentlemanly, or gentlewomanly conversations without dragging people down and without wanting to see them fail. And to actually use the social media platform in a better way to maybe increase our awareness and to help share what is this relatability. We have this great common denominator between all of us and how much we love these stories and this kind of storytelling. And I appreciate you taking the higher path in what you do, Bryan. Because
I try.
Perhaps in some modest way, I've tried to do that myself over the years. I don't know.
No, it's definitely something I try. I don't want to add to any negativity out there, and sometimes I'm guilty of it, but I usually catch myself pretty well.
So, what do you have any tips for Cliff on how to translate his previous long-form Green Books articles into Twitter threads? Is there like a recommended, only do 13 tweets on a thread, or any tips on kind of translating that?
It's hard for me to try to figure that out because my threads, they're all very off the cuff. I don't plan them out ever. I
like that.
Write them, and
yes,
I think for me it's very much just the passion I feel for the topic that comes out, and having sort of an innate understanding of how a story is going to land or unfold. But when you have experience writing essays and writing those long format things, you kind of know where you're going to have to end, and you're going to have to kind of know, you know where to set it up. So it feels very natural to me. And if you're used to writing essays, you still need to take that brevity that Twitter is known for and figure out how you can take maybe a paragraph and boil it down into a tweet. Mm-hmm. But you're still building to a thesis in the same way you would any essay or article.
And you're trying to button it up with a really great button at the end that provides cohesion to the thoughts that you've already laid out. I get it. I like that. I like that you just go into it without really planning it ahead.
Have you?
I like that. But you also do follow instinctually. You follow a writer's natural course in introducing a point, backing it up, and then buttoning it up at the end. I get that. Yeah.
Who did you get most excited about seeing that they retweeted or faved one of your tweets? Well, when was the moment where like I've made it on Twitter?
It was the morning after my last Jedi tweet, and I got a direct message from, or my Luke Skywalker thread, and I got a direct message from Ryan Johnson that was nothing but a little heart emoji.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh.
That's perfect. That is so perfect.
Yeah.
That is so cool. That is
Have you been
perfect.
retweeted by Mark Hamill yet?
Yeah, I have. He's tweeted some of my stuff. He's liked a lot of my stuff.
That's
I guess that's the other thing
now.
when
Like,
you get
people put in
when
their
you get
Twitter bio retweeted by Mark Hamill on this date.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think I have an advantage in being verified because when you get verified, you actually get sort of a different Twitter interface. So you can look at everyone who tweets at you that's just verified. So you have a whole separate feed for people who have that check mark.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think I'm kind of like I'm on easy mode in getting his attention because every time I like a tweet of his, it ends up in that better feed or that cleaner feed, I guess.
Right. I totally get that.
That's awesome. Well,
totally get that.
It's been a wonderful conversation with you today.
It really has been.
I think there are a lot of links, a lot of preparation that the fan community of Tolkien can prepare for now that we're seeing what's happening with Star Wars. Also, there's a lot of connections with Star Wars and Lord of the Rings already. You know, I mean, besides Christopher Lee being in both series, Bruce Spence, you know, there's
Richard Armitage in both series.
That's right.
And of course, Legolas was originally played by Anthony Daniels.
Anthony Daniels.
Yeah. See, you knew that. You knew that.
Yeah.
No, everybody else around here thinks I'm crazy. They think I'm crazy because they've never seen the Bakshi film. I'm the only one. So I'm glad you.
That was
for backing me up.
I started my daughter on the Bakshi films, and now we've moved on to the books. I mean, she's only 2, so I don't think she's going to remember any of it. But
wow, yeah.
Final question: do you think Ralph Bakshi should do an episode of the Amazon series?
Yeah, sure. I'd be down.
I don't think the animation would fit. I think it'd be cool if you did the opening credit sequence.
Hey, now you're talking. I like that idea too.
Totally.
Oh, that's actually a great little idea. That's a light bulb moment right over my head. I like that.
Well, it's been great chatting with you today, Bryan. We've got your Twitter handle on the screen, and I just hope we get to meet up in person. Will you be at San Diego Comic-Con?
Which one?
Will you be at San Diego?
Maybe. I've been to about 15 of them in the last 20 years and kind of burned out on a little bit.
Yeah.
But if I come, I will definitely make sure that we sync up.
Very good.
That would be great. Thank you. I got to say thank you for inspiring, I think, what is our better selves. I don't want to sound cliche, and I know I just skirted into that realm of cliche, but for someone to be erudite the way that we know we can talk to our audience and inform our audience in an erudite way without making them feel like they're less, like their comprehension is suffering or something. You know what I mean? It is so tricky because people will read stuff on Twitter, and if you just get a shade in your words wrong, they might take it personally, and you manage to be able to do, which is like an amazing thing that I'm inspired to do, which is say more, and it's always just an opening in the conversation instead of closing people out. It's always good to create more openings in the conversation that way, and I'm quite impressed with how you do it. So let's see. I might actually take my hand at some long-form threads on Twitter, which I've never done before. I might actually block out a few thoughts and actually do something.
You should.
I'll see if I can do it. I'll try. I'll have to try.
I think you can nail it.
Awesome.
I'm used to writing 1,000 or 1,200 words at a time. But to do an essay on Tolkien, I'm used to just letting the words just pour out of my fingertips, and then there, it's done. That's 1,200 words. And I don't even breathe, and I'm done. But to constrain myself to 140 characters and to try to block out bullet points of thought, I mean, I have a lot to learn, but I do appreciate you teaching us the way, Bryan.
I think you'll get there.
I'll try.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us, and please, everyone, follow him on Twitter. Where else can they find you?
Yes.
So you can find me. I've got a website at swankmotron.com that you can check with my contact info and sort of a portfolio of all my best writing, and the Full of Sith podcast, which is the weekly Star Wars podcast that I do, and you can find my writings all over the place. But my Twitter is sort of the best clearinghouse for that, and I'm very happy to direct people there. If they tweet me on Twitter, I'll point them in whatever direction they want. To help find my stuff.
Very good.
Good stuff, brother.
Very good. All right. Stuff. And we're gonna wrap it up here for the show. We went a little bit over, but thank you for joining us on Torn Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, live at the Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood.
What camera am I looking at? I'm looking
right
at
here.
this camera.
And please come join the show. We already have people joining the show here at the bar. They're playing with our toys and our Treebeards, and we want you to be part of the show as well. Follow him at QuickBeam2000, and you can follow the One Ring Net on all the websites.
The One Ring Net at every platform: Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, Twitch. Are we going to go back and do...
yeah, we're on Twitch.
We're on Twitch too, aren't we? Yeah, okay, good.
So, all right, we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, everybody, for being on our show. Thank you to our guests, and thank you to the dozen or so live people who went wandering in and out of the bar today. I'm glad you guys showed up, by the way. That was really nice of you to be here. My coworkers are here. It was really cool. All right.
Till next time.
Till next time, take good care of yourselves. We'll see you on Torn Tuesday next week at 5 p.m.